listeners, our guest live on the Chris Collins Show, Millennial Talk Show, is author of Hollywood Horrors, Murders, Scandals, and Cover-Ups from Tinseltown by Andrea Van Landingham. We got the amazing book right here. We are excited. How you doing, fam?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Well, you know, we're fabulous.
Good to see you again. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. Yes.
And what Marissa means is because obviously Andrea hasn't been one of our guests on the show, but you used to be with us in the early days of the Chris Collins Show, and I know Marissa and I, we can't thank you enough for basically being where we're at.
You're amazing.
3 years strong, so you really are.
Yes. And by the way, I've ordered your book, so I am like obsessed. He's got it. I'm ordering it. It will come this week. I'm bummed I couldn't read it beforehand. But yeah, I am like obsessed. I can't wait.
Thank you so much.
And Andrea, let's get right on into it because obviously I got the cover of the book right here, Hollywood Horrors, and you are a millennial. I mean, what made you want to write about this period where, you know, the backstage, off the lot shenanigans were happening in Hollywood?
Yeah. So I don't know. I just grew up fascinated with these kinds of stories. I love old films. I love old Hollywood. And these scandals, I think they really do give us a little bit of insight into what gave us the media conditions that we have today. So I thought that was important.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I never really thought about it that way. But those are the conditions we start thinking about.
Yeah.
Because my first reaction was because I thought the same way. I'm like thinking, I'm trying to figure out why Andrea would even want to pick this up and why would she even want to talk about this topic. Do you even have any relatives that possibly were a part of any of these Hollywood horror scandals?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah, no, thank goodness.
And like, what makes your horror book different than others?
So I wanted mine to just be a really fun kind of grab bag, if you will, of Hollywood stories. So it is a collection, I'm sure you've noticed, Chris, of just short stories. You don't have to read it in order. You could just pick a story, start reading. I wanted it to be kind of fun and like gossipy like that.
Yeah, and
kind of like the TMZ of like Hollywood horror.
I love that you said that. Yes, yes, that's actually really funny you say that because that's something I say. I'm like, I'm the TMZ of dead people.
Yes, I love that. That is all up my alley, like right there.
But I know you're also a theater gal, Andrea, and I also want to bring up that I was listening to David Mamet. He was on last Friday on Bill Maher's show, Real Time with Bill Maher, and they were discussing the idea of writer's block. And David Mamet said a really funny thing when he was joking about how he can't afford to have those moments. And what advice do you have for anybody? Because I know that this book right here is your very first time writing. Gosh, it's over 250 plus pages. That's not really easy to do at all. So how did you overcome these obstacles?
Thank you. I agree. No one can really afford writer's block, right? That is just such a thing. Writer's block is real. It is real. And the way I got around it was really just finding other ways to jog that creative inspiration. So sometimes there would be nothing coming to me and I would just go and do some kind of arts and crafts or do something else for a little bit to take my mind off of it and let my mind kind of go into inspiration, kind of chill mode. And then hopefully then something would come, but no, it was not easy.
See, that's interesting you say that. So I took a writing class, Professor Jose Cruz Gonzalez, right? CSU. I love him, by the way.
Hey.
Yeah, right. So I was in a play and we talked about writer's block. And so I was like, oh, I have writer's block. And his whole thing too was like, you actually don't have it if you just sit there and just start typing or writing, just do it. And it's nonsense. And all of a sudden something should click. So I like the idea too that you said like you find another artistic inspiration to then flip it into writing too. So that's like another way of thinking. I like that.
Well, how did publishing your first book change your way of processing, writing?
It gave me so much insight into even what goes into writing a book. I will admit, when I first went into this, I had no idea what to do, how to do it. I just thought, like Marissa just said, just start writing, just stream of consciousness, go for it, and then something will click into place,
but I guess that's what I want to know from you. It's like, how did you just randomly want to start writing a book? Because I know you are very heavily involved in the television and film world. I know you are also behind the scenes in a lot of theater projects. But how do you have the time to do this? And why did you even want to do this?
This was my pandemic baby. So I had time when I was doing it. Now it's a little bit different. Trying to work on part 2 is a little bit different now because I have 12-hour days that I work. Sometimes it's 15-hour days. And so when I get home, where does one find the energy? But at the time, it was honestly just the most just random occurrence that led to this happening. I got it based on a referral. The publisher was already developing it, so they needed an author, and I was connected with the opportunity, and
wow,
it happened.
See,
I want that. I want that. Hey, I want this book written. Can you just go ahead and write it? Can you send me that opportunity?
Well, that's
Honestly.
actually very intriguing that you just referenced that, Andrea, because how do you, when you're not necessarily in the book world, this is your very first book ever, a publisher reaches out to you looking for an author that already has, I guess, the basic overlays already set up in place, but then they are looking for a voice. How does that happen?
You know who made it happen? This was another Cal State LA connection here for
Wow.
us. Steve Lopez from LA Times.
Yes.
He's a professor at Cal State LA.
Yes,
my writing
that's
professor.
right. Yes.
Did you
Oh
take
my
his
gosh,
class,
how cool!
Marissa?
Networking, yeah, it's all the
Yes.
networking part of it. That's why I went to the grad school too. Was like networking. Is how Chris and I got together, right?
Yep.
Was all that networking grad school. Ah, it was awesome.
That is very fascinating because obviously Steve Lopez saw something special in you. Obviously, you must have the writing talent, because I can say this again. I mean, there's a lot of times when I'm getting prepared for a radio show, I got it all in the dome, but it's not as easy to get down on a piece of paper to make sure you keep yourself in track. And I find that so cool. And like, what are some of the most difficult things that you've experienced when it comes to your artistic process?
Oh my gosh, hands down, the hardest thing is one's own limitations, my own thought process. I had to do a lot of growing and a lot of changing my own mindset about my creativity and my ability to even pull something like this off. Because I will admit, there were days that I wanted to give up. I didn't even want to do it anymore. I was feeling uninspired, scared, whatever. But I had to push past all of that, because at the end of the day, this is a fantastic opportunity that doesn't fall into everyone's lap. So I had to follow through. So I think that was the biggest thing for me.
I think that's so cool, because as a set dresser by day and a Hollywood historian by night, as you like to call yourself, I think that is so groovy. What's been your impression of Hollywood to date? What's your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, nothing's changed. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
love that. I love that. You're like,
And when you say
nothing.
nothing's changed, what do you mean?
I'm
I mean,
kidding.
are you talking about some of the themes that are going on in this book?
In a lot of ways, it has changed. It has improved. We have a lot more transparency now that we get to enjoy due to things like social media, conversations that now are being had out in the open that had never been had before. So in a lot of ways, it is better. But I will say, at its nature, there are still some problems with the industry in terms of its exploitation of people, whether it's the celebrities or the workers or whoever. It's the machine still runs the same way, even though there are some things that hurt some people a little bit less. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, because that's sort of what I was trying to get at. Because when I was reading this book, I kept thinking about, obviously people are not like dying as much, I don't think.
Like we're not doing the Black Dahlia. They're not getting cut up and made into like art.
Yeah, we're not like it's not like Fatty Arbuckle, that whole infamous story. Read about it. It's right in the opening chapter of this book. It's fascinating. But is there a dark side to Tinseltown? And is some of this still being perpetrated as like the casting couch, for example? I mean, I was just listening to this fascinating take on the Chemical X podcast, where the host on that show, was talking about how she was basically virtually being groomed. They were told her, they send her bathing suits, they have her try it on, then she comes on Zoom and they go, oh wow, you're so beautiful on Instagram, but you don't look like who you are on Instagram right now on this Zoom call. So we're a little concerned. Can you try on these bathing suits in front of us? Oh, by the way, do you have brown nipples? Because we want to send you a white bikini. That to me is a virtual casting couch. That's strange. And so when we hear about these kind of stories happening to effect, is it easier for women to break in this industry? Because obviously we still have these crazy tropes today.
That is horrific. Wow. In a lot of ways, I think, yes, these things are still being perpetrated, because I mean, how recently did we have the first vestiges of like Me Too? This was only maybe 5-6 years ago.
Right.
And if you think about it, there's only a handful of people who we can think of that have been called out for that. And I know for a fact that there are so many more people who are perpetrators in Hollywood, and they have not had their time yet being called out. So who knows? I don't know if it's easier now,
Well,
but
I will tell a personal story actually real
mhm.
quick. I've actually never said this story live on the Chris Collins Show Millennial Talk Show. I don't even know if I've even told you, Marissa, this story.
Mm.
The very first feature film I ever worked in Hollywood was given to a good friend of mine. He let me have the opportunity to be a PA. I will not say the celebrity's name on air, but he is a very famous host, I guess you could say, TV host out there. There was a moment where he was asking me, he goes, "Hey, could you meet me on the side of the house? I just want to ask you a question real quick." We've all became real good friends on the set. He comes up to me and goes, "Hey, could you meet me in the bathroom real quick and give me a handy real quick so that I can get ready for this shoot?"
No
That is a real
way.
story. I'll tell you off the scene, Marissa and Andrea. But that's a very
Wow.
real
Did
thing
you
that
give him
happens
one?
to
No, I'm
both.
just kidding.
Yeah. What do you think, Marissa? But no,
Marissa.
it's a very real thing that
No, I'm
happens
just kidding.
with men and women today. That was my very first.
I guess I make a joke out of it, and I apologize making a joke
I
because
know you. I
it's
know
not
what
my
you- yeah.
first time that I've had that head up to me. It's not. It's so common for women in this industry. I mean, it happens to men too, but for women, like how many times I've had that type of a comment? Oh, hey, come do this. Oh, you're so gorgeous. Oh, you know what? Let me go ahead and fix your strap. Oh, let me have your
Right.
wiring, right? And they're try and put their hand down my shirt to fix my wiring. So much bullshit. That's why I make a joke just because like of trying to like get past that pain. That's why my daughter is not in the industry and I do not want her in the industry because she's not equipped to handle.
Yeah.
At least you're an adult. Imagine if he would have done that to you and you were 16, 15, right? Trying to understand what's happening. Who knows?
And that's so interesting that you brought that up, Marissa, because those are some of the themes, Andrea, that you explore in this book about how sometimes the mothers become the agent on a level for some of these young talents. And do you
Mhm.
see that sort of being a problem when you jump into the entertainment industry, or do you sometimes see that as a good thing? So then you can kind of shelter and make sure that your child is safe amongst these grown ass group of men and women.
Ooh, that is a very interesting question. Um, the concept of the stage mom really is a tale as old as time, right? It has
Yeah.
been around truly since the very beginning, as you can see in the William Desmond Taylor case with Mary Miles Minter and her mother really pushing her towards this stardom as early as the 1920s. We do still see that today. I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad if they're able to, shelter and take care of their kids. I think in a way, I don't, this is just my opinion. I think in a way it's a little bit exploitative because the whole concept of a child star is, you know, the kid can't really say whether or not they want to do it because they're kids.
That's
Yeah.
true too. What are you gonna do? You gonna kick them to the curb and go find the homeless tent outside of the LA studios to be able to make a living, and then obviously that paycheck goes to your parents and not necessarily
You know,
yourself.
and I have to
Mhm.
say, I believe it was Jodie Foster. It was a child star that grew up, and I'm almost positive it was her. She had said that if you want to protect your child in the industry, you have to be that manager mom to the extreme. You can't ever leave your child alone. You don't let them go to the actor's house. You know, there is no sleepovers. You
that's
are
so fascinating.
24/7
Yeah.
with your child to protect them. Why would I want to do that to my kid? It kind of blows my mind when parents are like, "Oh, my kid's so cute," and they put him in there. I'm like, you want your kid to have problems? Most child stars grow up addicted to drugs, suicidal, exploited, and unhappy, and get out of the business. Very few are like Jodie Foster and are happy and thriving.
And I
Very
think
few.
that's such a great point, Marissa, because even on the Howard Stern show, they had Molly from SNL, and you could be a grown ass woman. Still don't go up to the hotel room. She was explaining how Gary Coleman was all over her trying to hump her leg, trying to have sex with her when she was a virgin. This happened this week where she's explaining this story
Whoa.
about her new autobiographical. So this is a very real thing for especially women and including men as well. So please be careful when you're in the entertainment industry. But let's start to switch topics, Andrea, because I know that you are in the television, film, and theater world. And a couple years ago, Barry Diller made his name in the film industry as the chairman and CEO of 2 Hollywood studios. Do you know those, by the way? I'm just
I
curious.
don't know.
Well, it was Paramount Pictures and what was then called 20th Century Fox. And now he's declaring that the industry is dead. Do you feel the same way?
I don't think it's dead. I think it's in a period of intense change. I think we're seeing kind of what we saw in the transition from silence to talkies, right? Because now we're going from, you know, theaters to streaming. So I don't know if it's dead. I just think it's going through a major metamorphosis.
Well, I think that's a great point that you're referencing too, because obviously there was the days of the Magic Lantern, you know, where you go to
Hmm.
your Nickelodeon, and I'm not talking about Channel 300. We're not talking about SpongeBob. We're talking about actually the first open theater opened up in Pittsburgh.
I was totally thinking that's what you're talking about. I was like, where are we going with SpongeBob?
Well,
Like, I literally was like, where are we going, Chris?
You know, you pick up this book, you're going to learn a whole lot of things. But Nickelodeon, you know, the 5 cents to get in and go see one of your favorite things. But back then, obviously, that was the biggest spectacle back in the 1920s. But now, with streaming services available in the palm of our hands, we can watch it on a big 65-inch screen. We don't necessarily have to go see The Batman in theaters. So, with the substantial decline in ticket sales, do you see the movie business ever coming back?
I do. I think it's such a money-making machine and has been for 100 years. They are going to find ways to capitalize in other ways. They are.
And they are, in a way. I mean, think about how many more theaters are swapping over to allow you to eat an entire dinner,
Hmm.
reclining chairs, more space. So it feels like your living room versus like, I'm in a cubicle. So I
Hmm.
think they are trying to get more comfort and quality versus the quantity of people they can load up.
I think that's, you know, a great point. I think some of the more promising things about the revival of box office sales is I was reading this morning that Jim Carrey actually has his highest earning of opening weekend with his new film, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It beat out Bruce Almighty, believe it or not, CCS family.
Wow.
That's pretty insane. So if you see that, that's kind of promising. But according to Barry Diller, he says streaming has altered the film industry in substantial ways, including the quality of movies now being made. Does he have a point? I sort of think so.
Hmm. I agree. I think it is a quantity versus quality kind of game. And Marissa, that does kind of harken back to what you were just saying, because they are trying to make it more of an experience now to go out and see a movie, kind of like in the old days. I mean, before people would put on their best suit to go see the
Yeah.
movies, and there would be a before show, there would be an after show, it would be a whole night out. And I think they're trying to kind of bring that aspect back to try to sweeten the deal a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's kind of like the Hollywood Bowl when you go see Finding Nemo. It's probably one of the worst examples I'm saying, but you get what I'm saying. They would have an actual orchestra in front of the screen, or you go see Star Wars and they'll play the music in front of you. Do you see those kind of spectacles start to arise even more after this post-pandemic?
I do. I really do, because I think the live experience, the in-person experience, is going to become the new premium experience. And the more accessible version of that would be something that all of us can do. We can stay home and stream. So I do think so. They are going to try to make that more of like the premium night out experience for
I
sure.
think that is so cool. And you know what? This is such an amazing book, Andrea. And have you ever considered turning this into a podcast series? Because I
You
know true crime
should.
fans would absolutely love to hear you indulge more into every single scandal, cover up, and murder. Have you thought about it?
Ooh, I love that. I have thought about it. I've thought of doing like a video podcast, but truly I'm trying to get someone get me in touch with Ryan Murphy, because I want this to
There
be a
we go.
series.
Yes.
Yeah, turn it into a
You
television
put it out
series.
there.
You
Come on,
heard
people
it
that know
first.
Ryan Murphy. Get
Call
in there.
me.
And
Call
anyone
me.
who is interested in purchasing a copy of your book, where should they go?
Okay, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Powell's, anywhere books are sold. The last bookstore in downtown has it as well.
That
I
is
love that one. Yay.
Hey, support your independent local shops.
Love
We
it.
love you so much, Andrea. And thank you again for joining the Chris Collins Show, Millennial Talk Show.